All right, welcome to Behind the Scenes in studio. Today we have Derrick McDowell with the Youngstown Flea. So Derrick, why don't you tell our viewers how everything kind of got started and maybe some of your history as well?
Sure. Native son of the city of Youngstown, found myself in corporate America, just trying to provide for my family. But I always had this creative background. I was a visual artist growing up, drawing cartoons and comics and all that stuff. But corporate America kind of kept me busy, and I found myself doing some consulting work for an owner of the Harley Davidson shop in Austintown. But it was a unique opportunity where he sent me to travel and explore the motorcycle world. I mean, I was watching all the old school motorcycle movies and, just finding that culture in Miami and Denver and LA and New York. But each time I got to travel, you see a lot of that culture and creativity coming out in these neighborhoods. So I found myself in this area of Miami called Wynwood, where they had the entire neighborhood was being graffitied by commission, large scale murals, anything, galleries, empty vacant buildings were turning into apparel pop-up brands. And they had, parking lots filled with food trucks, and there was a guy who had a U-Haul truck he had rented, opened up the garage or the door of the U-Haul truck. They had a DJ in there. They wrapped the U-Haul truck with that brown butcher paper. They were letting people just walk up and throw paint at the truck. You know what I mean? And it's like, and then you come home to Youngstown and you're like, hang on a second. You know what I mean? Like, I want all of that. I just want it here where I'm from. And I just thought, like, I know it's here. I know it exists. I went on a hunt for it, just kind of trying to look at where can I find it evidently here. And the closest was often like Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Akron, Canton. And then I was kind of looking around for somebody else to do the idea. Again, I'm
nudge him and say, hey.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I found a market in Canfield actually that popped up. I went and visited them and I'm like, hey, I think this idea would be really great and you could do it on a grander scale in the city of Youngstown. And they just blew me off like, no, and Youngstown has its tough reputation. Right. And so that was probably a little bit of apprehension for them. But I just knew from just the deep down travel that I would see what these creative markets would do for communities and helping folks to feel welcome, giving a platform to creatives and makers. And I'm like, no, we deserve it. And I went back to those hosts of that market and I'm like, if you don't do it, like, I'm going to do it. And they just kind of blew me off again. Like, oh yeah, we'll meet with you. And we never could get a meeting. And so I just said, hey, listen, I don't know anything about doing this, but I know we deserve it. And I just become a student of it. Now I'm like going to different markets trying to study how to gather and pull this creative, subset of our community together. And, we pulled it off.
Okay, so the first iteration of the Flea, assuming it's not as big as it is today, what did that look like? Paint the picture.
I began with this, a very visual guy. Again, I grew up drawing that way. I have to sort of see things. And so in my mind, I see a Broadway play. And I'm not kidding. And so for me, it's like Broadway plays, the start is pulling back the curtain. And so I'm like, where's the best place to pull back the curtains? And it was like downtown. And I need it to be like super stage. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like the best location. Like I just imagine the most I know about Broadway is like, here's Juilliard. If you're going to do a performance musically and so I'm thinking like, yeah, that's it. So I come downtown and I see the Covelli Center and I'm like, that's it, right? And so I approached Covelli, and this was again years ago, right? And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I go next door and the Jaminet family, I actually went to see Rich Mills, who owned Ohio One at the time. And we're looking out his window. And I'm like, who owns that parking lot right there? And he's like, I don't know. Go check with the Jaminets. So this is me like on the hunt every day trying to figure out how to get that parking lot. Finally connected with the Jaminet family, and it was months of just negotiating and they always believed in the idea, and I'm thankful to them for that. But it was just, all they knew was renting their parking lot for parking. And you're talking about popping up a flea market in their mind, and I'm like thinking experience. I'm describing this Broadway play to them, you know, and I'm like, hey,
buying the vision, right?
And they're like, yeah, insurance liability, sir. Let's start with that. And so fast forward, I got the call, and I'd been calling their secretary every Monday. I told her one time, I said, you know, the best way to get rid of me is to give me a yes. So one day I call, it's Monday, and a guy picks up the phone, and I'm like, this is different, because every Monday it'd be a girl, you know, a woman. And he goes, yeah, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, this is Derrick, trying to start this flea. And he goes, yeah, you can use the parking lot. And I'm like, is that real? You know what I mean? Like, he sounded like he was trying to get rid of me. He was like, yeah, we talked about it, you're fine. And I'm like, sweet. That was like literally, I would say, January 24th of 2016. By February 1st, right? So give me 4 or 5 days to a week, and I built the logo, the website, and, you know, started social media and like put the word out, and it just exploded. So fast forward to the day of the first flea, April 2016, and we were set to go 11-4. So we got the venue, the Broadway play. I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. My vendors are starting to come at 6. We get the tables, chairs, everything set up. And it's probably 9:30. And I tell my wife, I'm like, I'm disgustingly nasty right now from all this setup. I'm going to go home. I'm going to shower. And I'll be back by 11, you know, for the market. Vendors are all set in place. We had about 38 vendors that I was able to convince. I had no clue how the community would respond. So I leave, go home, take the quickest shower I can take, and I come back. It's probably 10:20. I get off 680 on South Avenue, and my wife's calling me, and she's like repeatedly calling me. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, any guy, I'll see her in a few minutes, and she can tell me whatever she wanted to tell me. She calls back again. I'm like, honey, what is it? And she goes, you got to hurry up and get back here. And I'm like, I'm trying, but for whatever stupid reason, like I'm in a traffic jam on South Avenue, which is like never happened. I don't know what the heck's going on. And she goes, well, dummy, that's everybody trying to get into the flea.
Whoa.
Like we had traffic backed up. She said traffic's backed up Market Street Bridge and South Avenue. Wow. And she goes, this is not my market. This is yours. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it back. Like There was so much traffic. And so it was like exactly what I envisioned. You know what I mean? It wasn't perfect, but to me, it was just like the perfect display of us. Mm-hmm. Then I get a call at the time from Mike McGiffin, who was the events coordinator. And I'm thinking like Mike's probably like so pissed off at me that I didn't give him a better heads up. Like I had no clue it was going to be this successful. And I call, and I was pretty like aggressive when I answered the phone with Mike. And I'll go, hey, if you're calling to try and shut this thing down, man, you're gonna have a time on your hands, because like it's obvious the community. I'm getting all this out before Mike could even say a word. And he goes, hey, man, I just wanted to call and congratulate you.
Whoa, nice.
You know what I mean? He goes, you just changed the game for downtown. And he's like, thank you. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh, sweet. Now
I was impressed with the level of guerrilla marketing that you did, like you pounding signs on the ground all over the valley. How long did that take you to put in all those signs at first?
Every night I was on the phone with my wife, just letting her know I wasn't jailed. What interestingly, 2016 was a political year. And so that's where the idea came from, is like eyeballs are already going to be in yards looking at yard signs. And then the visual of, right, you see the color I chose, which is that bright kind of mustardy orange, you know, and it was like, it's going to be hard to ignore.
Right.
And one of the
they were everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Like
which is interesting. And so I don't know if I ever told anybody this, but like, it's that ubiquity that what you're looking for is like you're everywhere. But at any given moment, there was only 15 yard signs out. I bought 100 signs, which were $5 a piece. So that was a $500 investment. And I divided them amongst the 7 months that we had planned. And I was like, listen, I only can afford to put out like 15 so signs each month. But leading up to it, what I did was I strategically placed them at points that you couldn't avoid, like on and off ramps of 680. You know what I mean? Right. Like, it's like, yo, you can't, 5 points in Poland. You can't avoid it for some folks.
This episode was brought to you by Youngstown Computer, the Valley's technology company. We appreciate the loyalty and all you have shown us over the years, and it's our promise to serve all the technology needs of the Valley. Call 330-259-7278. We have both home and business services available. Everything from repair, installations, and new equipment. You can improve your Wi-Fi and have technology serve you better. Call 330-259-7278. Or you can schedule your appointment right now on youngstowncomputer.com and look for the red Book Now button.
All right, so we go from the parking lot Flea, and then you had a couple of appearances in Dior. How did that come down?
Yeah. So first year, again, you're dealing with something that's brand new to you. It's out of your wheelhouse. I was exhausted after. Imagine throwing like a college party for a whole campus or something like every month, and it's got to be good and got to be fun.
Yeah.
And you're like, we've done this 7 months in a row. And by the time we hit October, I'm like, whew, I'm going to enjoy taking some time to debrief and plan for next year. And a number of my vendors came and were like, we're not done, right? Like, we don't see any more dates on the website. Like, you can't be done. And I'm like, no, we're done. Like, go build your own market if you want to, you know what I mean? And they were like, you can't be done, and it was like this, group of vendors that came to me, and I kind of like nudged back at them and was like, okay, so here's what we'll do. I said, I'll go looking for an indoor space. And if I find something that like lights me up, we'll do it. If I don't, then you'll know in a week. I'm going to look for a week. So we visited a couple places that Mike had scheduled to, come tour. And we visited a couple other places. And then he's, like Dior was like the last thought because, it's a performing arts space. The space that we actually used wasn't, it's the foyer, hallway. But when we walked in, I was like, this is it. It was literally that Broadway play feeling again. Like when we open the curtains
there it is.
On this holiday market and bring back downtown shopping again. You know what I'm saying? Like that feeling that we always talked about of the Strausses, the window decorations and displays. And that's where we went. We didn't go to the suburbs and the mall then. And I just thought how wonderful that's going to feel combined with the space alone was beautiful and historic and did the job mostly for us anyway. The hidden gem of the whole thing combined with this new market, again, that just kind of hit the scene. And it was just a match made in heaven, man. And even though we got a lot of support for the actual market, there was even more education that still needed done with the community because, and I'm not disparaging, but the concept that they knew at the time was Four Seasons and Rogers. Right. The estate sale, the garage sale, the getting rid of, spring cleaning kind of. And so when they heard about components like we do yoga and we're pet friendly and we got food trucks and music that's upbeat and like dancing going on, and they were like, a flea market?
Mm-hmm. All right, so then the building.
Yeah.
Give us how that came together.
So going to other cities, seeing how this was being executed, the first iteration of it was sort of a retail version of the Flea. That was more than just once per month, where we would begin to curate products from each of our vendors and present them to you in a storefront in the downtown that would allow you to shop more frequently. But I knew from day one a building was in the works. But I wanted to earn it. I wanted the deep community support. I wanted the community to tell us that we love this, keep doing it, before you went out and just made this investment. And it just kept coming. The support kept coming, so the idea never went away. But the building was my answer to the pandemic and what it was doing to our small businesses. And the first thought with the building was QVC, or Home Shopping Network. And I thought, but if we had a space where folks could conveniently support small businesses from their home, then we could still support and keep this thing going. I'm like thinking I'm going to build a stage. I went on and bought the domain shoptheflea.com. But in buying the building, it was like, I don't know, a reprise of the Flea. Mm-hmm. Like, here's that Broadway play 2.0. All
right, you ready to watch the video?
Yeah.
All right.
And what's, interesting too, is as we look at the video, I'll say, is this was a section of downtown that almost had been forgotten about. You know, like who was talking about the east end of downtown before, Penguin City purchased and renovated its building and before the Flea moved in. And that's also a really cool thing for us, too, is to just know that we're helping people rediscover a portion of our own downtown.
And before you got in there, I had no idea that building was even there. So.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. But that's, I think, sometimes the example that we need. We need folks to be able to see that something you probably never thought about, but maybe passed by a bunch of times. I mean, I'm sure you've come over the Hemrod Bridge or rode down Andrews Avenue or East Boardman, just never thought to even give it a second look.
Yeah.
That's what's so awesome. I think interesting, too, is we really need to have a conversation of what does local mean? Oftentimes we think local means like every one of these vendors is from the actual city limits of Youngstown. We expanded our definition of local to say, hey, there are folks who are just in the same boat as us. Mm-hmm. And if they're from Cleveland, if they're from Akron, if they're in Canton, we've had vendors come from East Aurora, New York, Detroit. One vendor told me they were from Philadelphia. And I'm like, the street on the south side of Youngstown? She was like, no, Philly, PA. And I'm like, you drove all the way from Philly to be a part of this Flea? Shoppers that are coming from areas where you just wouldn't even think. There was a lady from Canada who was staying at the Doubletree, and she had asked, what are some things to do? And they told her, about the Butler Museum. They told her about the YMCA. I think you got a pass to go to the Y. And then she said it happened to be the weekend of the Flea. And they were like, if you're in town and you should go to the Flea. And so those are things to be commended, not super critiqued. People are like, are all these vendors from, Youngstown? I'm like, no. We have expanded our definition of what local looks like because these are all folks that have chosen to come to Youngstown and see this as a viable market. Then we love you.
This episode was brought to you by Youngstown Computer, the Valley's technology company. We appreciate the loyalty and all you have shown us over the years, and it's our promise to serve all the technology needs of the Valley. Call 330-259-7278. We have both home and business services available. Everything from repair, installations, and new equipment. You can improve your Wi-Fi and have technology serve you better. Call 330-259-7278. Or you can schedule your appointment right now on youngstowncomputer.com and look for the red Book Now button.
So, as you're looking through some of the footage, right, you see a number of different things. You see, age demographic, right, young. You see the more mature portion of our community that loves these markets as well. We love to tag little what we call flea babies, right? So kids you see in strollers, the pet friendliness. You see people being able to bring their, we call it anybody you love, right? So if you love your cat, come on, bring it. You know what I mean? It's interesting to see a cat on a leash, but hey, we say we're pet friendly, bring it. But that helps folks not have to decide whether they can come to the market or have to leave their pet at home for that. Right. For that reason. And so, again, you see dog treats, Wookiees cookies here, but the components of the Flea have lent themselves to the community as well. Support of the arts community. We love the arts. We love the makers of vintage clothing. We love the food trucks. We love our music. But you see on this vendor who does tie-dyed shirts that she's using a portion of her space to do some live demonstrations. So we want to get into how people do their craft as well. And that's a part that we're going to add with the building. It goes back to that QVC hand model, showing you how I pour my candles, showing you how I forge my jewelry, showing how these soaps are made. People are very intrigued by that stuff.
As a kid, when I would go to the fairs, those demonstrations of knives, like I could not pull myself away from that.
What was interesting back in the day when we first started the market, people would go, you have such wonderful vendors, and Youngstown's such a wonderful place, which was like to the contrary of everything that you read and heard about Youngstown. These were people that weren't from here. It's not just us attracting vendors from other areas. We're attracting shoppers from other areas who are coming here saying, and again, with our tough exterior and we invented grit, to have people say, Youngstown, people are such nice people.
You're so swell.
I was like, is this Mayberry all of a sudden? But it was true. We have such wonderful vendors, man. I mean, we've never had issue with who we partner with. We honor them and we appreciate them, and I think they honor and appreciate the space of the Flea. Yeah, and this girl, Chagrin Falls, she just celebrated with us last Flea that she's opening up a new shop, in Chagrin Falls, and thankfully these kinds of markets have helped her sustain her business to be able to realize that dream. So what folks don't realize too is when you support one of these small businesses, you're supporting their dreams of one day owning their own shop or their own building, or popping up. Youngstown Clothing Co. is a wonderful example of early plans. They kicked off in 2016 just like we did. They shared their plans. I remember when Matt called me the first time, and he says, we're just some guys from Struthers. Some of us are, down in Columbus. Some of us, but we have this idea for this nostalgic T-shirt brand. We've got a couple of T-shirts and a website. Can we come to the Flea? And I'm like, not only have I not seen this in, communities, I'm like, we're going to kill it. Like, we're going to be strategic about it. Not only Youngstown Clothing Co., but Culture House Coffee on Elm started out, with a Flea, bags of coffee, just grounds and selling it, to now having their own shop and still doing the Flea. Dough House Cookies with Tari Avery, Carmela Williams with Deep Roots, self-care. These are real examples of folks who would tell you, the Flea has been largely instrumental in helping us. There were folks who were like, I just paid my back taxes on my building with what I made at the Flea today. That gives them the ability to breathe another 30 days, another year of taxing. Some folks come and they make their whole rent. For some folks, this is their full-time business, and that's it. And so they don't have any room to play around with this thing, so we take it very seriously. And we learn just like everybody else. We're a small business that has to, like you said, iterate and come up with new, fresh ideas. You saw this year, 2021, the year after we bought the building, was the first year Flea on Phelps. So now we're getting outside of the Dior. We're outside of, we had done a market at YSU, but we're outside the Dior in the winter, cold, but there, and it was a massive success. And then you go this year, adding in Flea at Fellows, Riverside Gardens with the Mill Creek, on Mother's Day. And it just exploded, and so we're looking at how these, what we call Flea collabs. We just did a market a couple of days ago on Saturday with Westside Bowl. It's like these eclectic spaces that we're finding ourselves in, and that's opening up people's ideas to, like, we're getting messages now like, hey, I heard about your community collabs. Want to come collab with us over here? Want to come collab with us over here? And so, the Flea has been, again, well received, well supported, and, thankfully we haven't run out of ideas that the community is responding to.
And what I think this platform is really cool from a vendor side, that a lot of these lower scale companies have a place that they can play with their products, see what works in the marketplace, and it's affordable so they can get their start through this kind of thing. And
those were some of the initial selling points, right? It's, you don't have to own a building. We do. You don't have to own the tents. We do. You don't have to own or do the rental negotiation with the Jaminet family. We'll do that for you. And you only pay us, in 2016, $50, right? Fast forward to 2017, 2018, to now 2023, right? We charge $75. So you could see we've tried to remain affordable for the community. In 7 years, we've only increased by $25. And now we're providing tents to our outdoor markets, vendors. And then we've always held to that micro incubator, sort of ecosystem, to say we're not just taking Joe's $50 and giving him a space and telling him, hey, good luck. We're vested just as much as you are in your success. And yes, we want you to test out that new coffee ground. We want you to test out that new smell with that candle. We want you to play around with the season. It's spring, it's summer, it's fall. And do that where, you have the room to be able to do so without tripping and falling so aggressively that you can't recover.
That's right.
That's any business, I think, would enjoy that. But we're also looking at the next iteration of the building, which is some vendor stalls that allow us to open up more frequently than once per month, and now give Joe the opportunity to say, what's it look like to have a 90-day lease of my own space? that I have to come to every day and open up the gate. We're going to get to that QVC home shopping network opportunity. We're going to have a virtual digital footprint where you can shop the flea more than just that once per month. Timing, obviously, is a part of that, and allowing room for these vendors. They come as they are. We have to meet them where they're at, right? You can have all the vision in the world, but if you outrun the people that it's meant for, and you don't give them time to process where they're at and where they want to be and where they want to go. And what folks might see is an old ratted out industrial building, like, don't talk about my building, we love it. I know we need some cleaned up windows, but what's also interesting is like the people who come and say, don't touch it. Like, leave it the way it is.
Yeah.
That's the character of it. And that's what I want to really hone in on when you think about the flea, is that it's been a slow process to try and educate the community about what this market is. But that's just version Youngstown Flea 1.0. That's right. Like we could really blow your mind with some of the things that are happening already out in more progressive cities. But we do know, again, having a vision that outruns the community that it's meant to serve does no good for anybody. So we're just taking our time, man. So, I encourage folks, man, don't get super nostalgic about what you've built. Like, take it other places if you can. Collab with other people and glean off of that. And then sit back and take a moment to say, what could this be? Where can we take this next? Where do we belong? When we bought the building, I had to come out of parking lot mentality, right? You didn't realize that. Like the Broadway play that I created in the parking lot, it's like somebody just gave you a bigger stage and more props and more actors and actresses and more resources. And you're like, oh, we're about to make a huge production now, All
right, for our viewers, why don't you give all your information away, where to check the schedule, how to get involved?
So Youngstown Flea on any social. So we have mainly Instagram and Facebook. Youngstownflea.com is the website. If you're interested in becoming a vendor, there's an application process. It's simply an introduction to who you are, so don't think it's anything crazy, but we do need to get a good idea of anybody that's interested in participating in the market. There's also text alerts you can sign up for to stay in the know of when the dates are and when we're going to be at a pop-up like a West Side Bowl or a Phelps or a Fellows, and then engage on social with us. That's the best way. We do highlights of the vendors. There's a vendor section on our website. So who was there in July, you can go see. So giving them a spotlight. Who's going to be there in August, you can see. 365 East Boardman Street in the east end of downtown is where we're located. But that's not always where we're at, right. So I tell people, be careful, because we might be at West Side Bowl, we might be on YSU's campus, we might be at the Flower Gardens, or we might be at Phelps.
All right, Derrick, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, thanks, Joe, man. I appreciate it.